Want to have 90% recovery rates that blow away the industry standards? Do you know what the industry standards are? For the average therapist, their success rate when dealing with addiction is 26%. That's terrible. Do you know what the recovery rates are? If you don't see a therapist and you just go to AA or NA meetings, it's 25%. Therapists are beating that by 1%. That's basically a rounding error. How can that be? Well, most therapists, you know what they do? They do an AA-based model. They send you to AA, and all they talk about all day is AA. So basically, they're just a quick start program for AA to get you trained in AA. They have you sit in a hospital for, traditional 28 days, if you can ever get that now. Now you can probably get about 3 days in a hospital because managed care, no, I had it right the first time. Mangled care doesn't want you to get treatment. They want you to make your premium payments every month, which are outrageously high, and then deny you treatment. So, how do we get better recovery rates? How come when I was a therapist, I got 90% recovery rates? 9 out of 10 people would succeed. The 10th person, they didn't follow any of my suggestions, so they didn't make it. Oh well. When all else fails, follow directions. I gave them everything they needed to succeed, and then they chose not to. The other 9 out of 10 said, hey, Paul, you're making this so fast, simple, and easy. I'm just going to do it. So, once again, how did I get 90% recovery rates? You ready? I cheated. I cheated over and over and over again. Addiction is a nasty, dirty disease. It'll lie, it'll cheat, it'll steal from you. I said, I don't have to have any ethical boundaries. I can cheat as much as I want. I used every tool, strategy, technique, every resource that was out there. I cheated. I layered it all on. And then you know what happened? You guys blame me for those recovery rates. But I wasn't the whole of your addiction recovery program. I was a piece. Now, let me show you a chart and walk you through it, and you'll see exactly how I brought together an entire recovery team to help you get sober and why that increased my recovery rates so dramatically. You ready? Let's get started. So let me show you how I got those amazing recovery rates. How'd I do it? I built a powerful support system, and I brought on an entire team. This is my team here. I call this holistic recovery, from the whole. It used to be when you got those 26% success rates, there was the client, and then there was the therapist, and then boom, you were done. That was it. That got you what? 26% recovery rates. Let me read that backwards to you. 1 out of every 4 people survived. Reading that backwards, you had about a 74% kill rate. 3 out of every 4 people failed. That's horrible. That's terrible. That's embarrassing. What happens when you don't recover? Death, jail, institutions. Well, guess what? Half the people coming to me had already been to jail. 100% of them had been through an institution. They were sitting in one now. What was left for options? Death. These are not good options. So you had to recover. So what I had to do is I had to say, how can I support these people better? From the root word support system, right? Support. How do I support them? Well, one of the things that I could do is I could connect them with a friend or a sponsor. That was a great way to do it. Maybe their coworker was in on their recovery secret. I had a family program that I ran. So not only was the client trained, the family was trained. Then most people, the figure is 75% of all addicts have what's called a secondary coexisting condition. Sometimes they call it comorbid. Morbid sounds like death, so I don't like that word. Let's call it coexisting. You have a secondary mental health issue. You got anxiety, you got depression, maybe you got ADHD, maybe you're bipolar. I don't know. But given the fact that I was only going to treat you for addiction, I would bring in a secondary therapist to treat you for those mental health disorders, and also a psychiatrist to help you with any medications, which about anywhere from 25 to 75% of people needed based on the diagnosis. Then I had support groups. Once you got done with my program, once a week for half the group, which was about an hour and a half, you could come in for an hour and a half and have a support group every week. What was your other support group? Well, you could go to AA and you could go to NA, right? So I didn't spend a lot of time teaching you how to use AA and NA because that's where you're going to spend what? The rest of your recovery life. And that was free to you. So why are you paying money to teach you stuff that's free? I had to teach you the basics of it, why it was valuable, how to get a sponsor, and how to get the absolute most out of an AA or NA meeting. Because surprisingly, when you go to an AA or NA meeting, they never sit you down and say, hey, here's how you get the most out of this. Then once I was done with that, boom, let's get into the other stuff that you're never, ever, ever going to learn in AA or NA. That's where I'm the most valuable. And that's where I spent fully 80% of my time. So 80% of my time was teaching you other skills and coping skills and things like that. Only about 20% of my time went into teaching you AA and NA and how to get the most out of it and how to use a sponsor and those types of things. This is why my recovery rates were so much better. Now, people in recovery have other issues besides addiction, and these things become a trigger for them. When you don't know how to get the money to get a psychiatrist, you don't know how to set up that meeting. What I would do is I would set people up with a case manager. The case manager would help them get recovery meds. They would get them a secondary therapist. They would help them things with like getting funding to keep their lights on, helping them get a job, maybe getting additional training, whatever they needed. Maybe they needed their tooth fixed. They were going to go back to their opiates because they had this raging, rotten tooth in their head and it hurt so bad they couldn't sleep, they couldn't think straight. They're like, please God, just kill me now. It hurts so bad. So they go back to the drink or the drugs to numb the pain. No. That's not how you fix it. You actually fix a tooth by fixing a tooth. Who would help you do that? The case manager. And they would make it faster, simpler, and easier. They could get more done in 5 minutes working on your case, helping you out, because they know all the resources, all the programs, where all the funding was, everything. They could do more for you in 5 minutes than you could figure out in 5 weeks. So look at this great support system that I created. Look at how holistic it is. Look at how it hits every different area. That's how, along with my counseling, my counseling by itself probably would have got people sober 60 to 75% of the time. But to get to 90, I needed the support system. And you do too. Now, I'm not there to create all this stuff for you, but you can send your family to Al-Anon. You can make a phone call and get a therapist. You can do the same thing with the psychiatrist. Or you can get a case manager to help you with all of this stuff. You can connect with your AA and NA meetings. You can just Google that. Heck, if you call the AA or NA toll-free number, a lot of times they'll hook you up with a buddy and they'll even come by and pick you up if you haven't got a car. It's part of recovery that one addict helps another addict. And you can get yourself, connect with friends and get yourself a sponsor at an AA meeting when your support group. Just go and ask the guys, that are checking people in at the front desk, showing people where the coffee and the donuts are. Say, hey, do you know anybody that might be a good sponsor? You can do that. So these are all things that you can set up on your own to significantly and dramatically improve your recovery rates and make it so much easier. It's easier carrying a hide-a-bed up to the 3rd floor by having 4 of your friends help you than by trying to carry it on your back. And I think addiction is the same way. Don't try to do it all by yourself. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to tell people that I'm in recovery, that I have an addiction. There's an old phrase. It simply states that the last person to figure out that you're an addict is you. Oh God, your friends know, your coworkers know, your boss probably knows, everybody around you, your spouse, your significant other, your kids, everybody knows you're an addict. And they're just literally sitting around, waiting, begging, praying every day that you'll realize it and actually do something to help yourself. And these are all people that are excited, hell, they're horny to help you out. And all you have to do is ask. It shows humility. It takes strength. It takes a lot of strength to humble yourself to ask somebody for help. You're not a strong person by doing stuff on your own. You failed on your own. Strong people ask for help, and they ask for it all the time. I don't even have any psychological problems. I'll tell you, if I can't figure out something in 5 minutes or something is difficult, I immediately ask for help. I don't just teach this stuff, I do this stuff. And I want you to do it too. So let's talk a little bit more about how we can legitimately cheat in recovery. But I wanted to make sure you had this holistic system and had a good sense of how it works. Want to learn some other great ways to cheat? See all those books behind me? I've read them all, plus hundreds more. And what did I do? I take an entire book. Say a book like this one just happens to be on leadership, but ignore that. Say it was on addiction. I'd sit there and I would read it from cover to cover. And this thing is 142 pages. And what I would do is I would take the best 5 to 10 pages out of this. I would make it into a handout and I would hand it to my recovering addicts. Boom, done. I might even read 5 or 6 books and say 4 of them aren't worth the powder to blow them to hell. They're just not condensed enough. They're not good enough. I want the best of the best of the best. Then I would take 5 to 10 pages out. And instead of having to read 5 books and read, 8, 9, 100,000, 1,000 pages, you would just have to read 10. That's a legitimate cheat. Then every single institution that I worked out, if they had a handout, a recovery sign, they had something that was good on CD that you could listen to in your car. I made those into CDs and MP3s for my clients. If they had videotapes, I made those into VHS for clients back in the day. And then I went and I made them into DVDs. And then, of course, I made them into MP4s. So I had an entire recovery library. If you said, hey, Paul, I'm having this special trigger, I'm having this special issue, I have a problem in this area. Maybe it's one of those mental health things that doesn't have to do directly with addiction, but has a huge impact on addiction, those coexisting mental disorders, I would have a piece for it. Maybe it was something that wasn't necessarily a mental disorder. You had a hard time understanding how to get a sponsor. I had a piece on that. You didn't know how to break your addiction to your family and tell them about it. You didn't know how to ask for support or help. You had certain triggers that were bothering you. You realized that you might be codependent. There was all kinds of things. No matter what you came up with, 99 times out of 100, I could just reach into my filing cabinet and I could grab something that was audio, video, or written. I could just literally give you a handout. And then I had a recommendation list of books for you to read. I'll try to put some of this information in the description. And while I was doing treatment, what I did was I grabbed these pieces and these became our talking points. We'd go ahead and we just read in the group those 10 pages. It would take us about 10, 15 minutes. And then we'd talk about it for 45 minutes. We'd highlight it and write down the stuff that we thought was important as addicts to us personally. And then we had a hard copy. Little interesting piece of psychology. Human retention rate is right around 4 to 6%. So call it 5, which means if I didn't give you that handout, I would have been a brilliant therapist. I would have presented it from memory, or I would have cheated off of my handout, and then I would have held on to it, never given it to you. And by the time you got home, your seat in my rehab was not even cold, and you had forgotten 95% of everything I told you. But if you said, hey, I remember Professor Paul said you should do this or that. Oh, I know, that's in that handout. And you go there and you don't even have to read the whole damn thing because chances are you highlighted it. So you only got to read the 10 or 20% of that article that you highlighted that you just thought was, wow, that was amazing for me. And you grab it out of there. And then your family members also had access to these handouts. Maybe they had an anger management problem. Maybe they had a problem with triggers. Maybe they had a problem with resentments. Maybe they had anxiety or depression. So a lot of times these things were great for family members too. Sometimes you just throw a copy on the coffee table and hope somebody that you know intimately, would see that, be interested in it, and read it. That helped out a lot of people in recovery. But again, you had the black and white copy. Instead of having a 5% retention rate in your memory, you had a 100% retention rate because it was literally there in black and white. Or you could listen to it or watch it on your TV, listen to it in your car over and over again. So now you're filling your mind with recovery while you're riding back and forth to work, say in your car, or on your little MP3 player or phone, through your iPods, while you're mowing the lawn or walking the dog. It was a great way to boost recovery. I even had stuff like that was just for you to listen to. It was positive quotes and little tools and techniques. It wasn't the biggest, baddest thing that was out there, but it was something to keep your mind on recovery constantly, so that anytime you had nothing to do, you had something to do and you were working on your recovery. So I've got a million different legitimate cheats. You'll see them throughout the training, but I just want to give you a sense of how it works and how you can have a 90% recovery rate. Heck, it might be higher. It should be 100% if you're doing the tools and strategies that I'm trying to teach you here. Now, people would come to me and they would come to my office and they would say, Paul, what are your recovery rates? And I would say, well, this typical recovery rates are 26%. I get 90, but they can be 100% for you. 100%? How can you guarantee 100%? Because I've never seen anybody fail that did everything that I told them to do. Now, if you do 100% of what I tell you to do, your recovery rates will be 100%. If you do less than that, well, then the number starts ticking down. Here's what I would recommend to a friend. Do what you're told. Because I already made it fast, simple, and easy. There is no shorter method. There is no quicker way that I'm aware of and that you're ever going to come up with. And it's like I'm giving you the cure for cancer and saying, hey, you got to spend an hour a day on this. Go ahead and spend the hour a day. Don't say, well, can't I cut it down to 50 minutes and only have 10% cancer? No, do the 100%. Okay. If you're getting good value from this, go ahead and like and subscribe. Go down through the playlist. Don't miss anything. I don't put a training in here that you don't need to hear. So go through and get it all. I handed it to you. I sent it to your house and I made it free. Least you can do is give it a listen. My name is Professor Paul. Thanks for being a great friend, a great listener, a great student, and congratulations on your recovery. I'll see you in my very next training.